why the universe assigned you the role of the indestructible. There are people walking this earth right now who are feared by darkness, not because they are aggressive, not because they fight, but because they carry something holy, something untouched, something that cannot be manipulated, possessed, or broken. You may not realize it yet, but if you're watching this, it's probably you. We don't choose this path, it chooses us. And when God trusts you, when the divine places a mark on your soul, the entire spiritual realm, both light and dark, knows your name. This is not a metaphor. This is a spiritual reality. There are souls sent here not just to survive, not just to awaken, but to guard the balance of realms. These are the ones who walk through darkness and do not flinch, who stand in rooms full of chaos and silently restore order. Demons hate them not because they're strong in ego, but because they're empty of illusion. God trusts them not because they're perfect, but because they've been purified by fire. And there are signs, 7 to be exact. 7 marks etched into your life, your soul, your story. 7 signs that you are trusted by God and untouchable by demons. The first sign? You've been through things that should have broken you, but didn't. You've faced betrayal, heartbreak, loss, abandonment, and still you're here. Not numb, not bitter, but deeper, wiser, stronger. You've cried on floors no one saw. You've questioned your faith in silence. You've felt alone in crowds. And yet something inside you never gave up. That something, that's not just resilience. That's divine ordination. God doesn't trust those who haven't been tested. And you, my friend, have been tested in ways most people couldn't survive. And yet you did more than survive. You transformed. That's why demons can't touch you. Because brokenness didn't kill your spirit, it revealed your power. The second sign. You are deeply aware of energy even when you don't want to be. You walk into a room and feel everything. You sense when someone's lying. You can feel the weight of unspoken tension. You dream vividly. You wake up at 3 a.m. for no reason. You've seen things, shadows, lights, presences that others would call crazy. But you're not crazy. You're attuned. God has opened your spiritual senses because you're meant to navigate things others can't see. You are a radar in a storm, a lighthouse in a fog. And demons, they hate light, especially the kind that can see through them. You don't need to fight darkness. You just need to stand in your light and it flees. The third sign, you've always felt different. Not better, just different. Maybe you've never fit in perfectly. Maybe you've always felt like an outsider, even in your own family. You had questions others didn't ask. You saw beauty where others saw nothing. You felt called to something higher even before you had language for it. That's not loneliness, that's selection. God doesn't send chosen ones through the wide gate. He sends them through the narrow one. And yes, it's harder, it's lonelier, but it's also sacred. You weren't born to blend in. You were born to carry a frequency the world forgot. The more you embrace your difference, the more powerful your presence becomes, and the more untouchable you are. Now let me ask you something. What if your deepest wounds were not punishments, but proof that you were trusted with pain? What if God allowed the storm not to destroy you, but to reveal that you are the storm's master? What if every attack, every betrayal, every dark night was an initiation? Because that's the fourth sign. You've been targeted by darkness your entire life, but it never won. Maybe you've felt cursed. Maybe you've battled depression, addiction, self-doubt. Maybe you've even wanted to die. But look, you didn't. That's not weakness. That's warriorhood. Because the enemy doesn't waste energy on souls that don't matter. The fact that you've been attacked is proof that you're a threat to darkness. And your survival? That's the ultimate flex. The fifth sign, you've been given insight beyond your experience. You just know things. How to help people, what decisions to make, who to trust. You've had visions, intuitive hits, dreams that later came true. People come to you for advice, even when you feel unqualified. That's not coincidence. That's spiritual authority. When God trusts you, He downloads wisdom into your soul. You become a vessel not because you asked for it, but because your soul said yes before you were born. And here's the wild part. The more humble you stay, the more divine intelligence flows through you. That's why demons can't enter your space. You're not just protected, you're covered. And not by ego, but by grace. The sixth sign, you're not afraid to face your shadows. Most people run from their darkness. But you turn toward it. You've done the inner work. You've questioned your beliefs. You've sat with your pain. You've journaled through rage and cried through healing. That takes courage, because the only way to become untouchable by demons is to stop being afraid of yourself. When you're no longer ashamed of your wounds, demons lose their grip on your soul. You've reclaimed your power by integrating your shadow. You don't need to pretend to be perfect. You are whole, and wholeness is the one thing demons cannot manipulate. And the seventh sign, you've been called to serve even when it cost you. You've helped others while you were still healing. You've given love when you were empty. You've stood in truth when it made you a target. You've chosen integrity over popularity. That is the mark of a soul trusted by God. You were not created for comfort. You were created for impact. And your life is not random. It's encoded. Your story, your scars, your sensitivity, they all point to a deeper truth. You are here to be a living portal for divine will. And when you walk with that awareness, demons don't just leave you alone. They fear what happens when you speak, when you love, when you show up fully as yourself. So now I ask you, which of these signs live in you? And what are you going to do with them? Because awareness is not enough. This is a summoning, a reminder, a revelation. You are not weak. You are not broken. You are not cursed. You are trusted. And when you own that truth, not with arrogance but with devotion, you become something eternal, something radiant, something untouchable. The hidden armor of the chosen, how divine trust turns you into a shield of light. To be trusted by God is not a compliment. It is a commission. It means you've been given access to something sacred, something eternal, something invisible to most. And with that trust comes a kind of armor, one that no demon, no curse, no spiritual parasite can penetrate. But here's the twist. That armor doesn't look like power in the way the world defines it. It doesn't always come with loud prayers or rituals or titles. It's quiet, subtle, unshakable. It's not about how loudly you speak in the light, it's about how fearlessly you stand in the dark. That's the difference between those who claim power and those who have truly been called by it. The armor begins with purity of intention. When your heart is aligned with truth, not performance, not manipulation, not ego, your energy becomes clean. And clean energy cannot be infiltrated. Demons don't just attack people, they attach to distortion. They feed on fear, envy, pride, and unspoken wounds. But when your intentions are pure, when you live in alignment, there's nothing for them to grab onto. That doesn't mean you're perfect. It means you're honest. And honesty is light, raw, unfiltered, divine light. That's why when you walk into a space, things shift. People either soften or resist you, because light exposes everything. And those who live in darkness cannot hide in your presence. Another layer of your armor is your ability to endure without hardening. Look at your life. Look at the betrayals you've moved through, the nights you didn't think you'd survive, the moments when you were surrounded by spiritual warfare but still chose to love, to forgive, to move forward. That's not weakness. That's spiritual titanium. That's the kind of resilience demons can't comprehend, because they operate through cycles of trauma. But you broke the cycle. You didn't pass the pain forward. You alchemized it. You turned wounds into wisdom. That's why you're untouchable. You don't just survive attacks, you transform because of them. And every time you choose love over revenge, healing over hiding, you expand your divine protection. There is also the armor of obedience to your inner voice. Let's be real, you don't fit into most systems. You've always had a rebellious streak, not because you want to cause trouble, but because you can't lie to yourself. You can't pretend something feels right when it doesn't. That's not stubbornness. That's divine discernment. God gave you a finely tuned inner compass for a reason. And when you follow that voice, even when it costs you comfort or approval, you walk in alignment. And alignment is spiritual authority. Demons may tempt, distract, seduce, but they can't force. And when your yes is real and your no is holy, you become a walking gate of divine will. You become impossible to manipulate. Now think about this. Why do some people pray louder but seem to live in more fear? Why do others whisper with peace and walk with unshakable power? It's because real armor isn't noise, it's presence. The chosen don't need to announce themselves. They let their frequency speak. You've probably noticed this in your own life. You don't chase validation anymore. You don't need to explain your path. You simply walk it. And that calm, that certainty, that's another layer of your armor. It's called spiritual sovereignty. It means you are no longer tossed around by every opinion, fear, or energy spike. You know who you are, and that knowing radiates through your aura like a force field. Then there's the armor of soul memory. You've had moments, flashes where you remembered who you were before this life. Maybe in dreams, maybe in meditation, maybe in the middle of a breakdown. Something stirred, a voice whispered, "You've done this before." And it's true. You've walked through lifetimes of spiritual training. You've stood at gates of transformation. You've battled darkness not with swords but with truth. That's why demons recognize you before you recognize yourself. That's why you felt under attack before you even knew what spiritual warfare meant. Your soul remembers. And that memory, that's your spiritual resume. That's why you move differently. That's why you're feared in the unseen. But the most powerful armor of all, your love. Not the fluffy kind, not the performative kind. I'm talking about the kind of love that looks darkness in the eye and says, "You don't win here." The kind of love that forgives without forgetting, that protects without controlling, that speaks truth without needing to be liked, that heals not just with words but with presence. That kind of love is nuclear. It melts curses. It dissolves contracts. It disrupts demonic blueprints. When you love from a place of divine connection, you become dangerous to everything that feeds on fear. That's why God trusts you. Because you don't just carry love, you are love. Embodied, fierce, holy. So now I ask again, what are you doing with this armor? Are you hiding it? Are you doubting it? Are you waiting for someone else to confirm what your soul already knows? Or are you ready to rise into full embodiment? Because the armor doesn't work unless you wear it with faith. You must own your light, not arrogantly, but unapologetically. You don't owe the darkness an explanation. You owe the light your life. You've been trusted. You've been trained. You've been chosen. And now it's time to walk like it. When you show up, darkness bows, the final proof you were built for spiritual war. There is a moment in every chosen one's life when something shifts. You stop asking, "Why me?" and you start saying, "Of course me." That moment is not loud or dramatic. It's quiet. It happens in the stillness of your being when you realize that your survival wasn't luck, it was strategy. That your pain wasn't punishment, it was preparation. And that your sensitivity wasn't weakness, it was a divine weapon. That's the final proof. When darkness no longer intimidates you but recognizes you. When you walk into rooms and things move without you saying a word. That's when you know. You don't just believe in light, you embody it. And light doesn't beg, light doesn't chase, light doesn't prove. It just shines, and everything else either aligns with it or gets exposed. You were built for this. Every attack you endured, every season of silence, every time you were overlooked or underestimated, it was all sculpting you into someone who could carry weight without collapsing. You didn't just survive spiritual war, you became a weapon of peace. That's something demons can't touch. They can't replicate it. They can't counterfeit it. Because it's not based on appearance, it's based on frequency. And your frequency, after everything you've lived through, is now encoded with divine authority. That's why certain people can't look you in the eye. That's why you've been the problem in spaces that couldn't manipulate you. You don't bend to fear anymore. And where there is no fear, there is no entry for the enemy. Let me tell you a secret. Demons don't fear your prayers. They fear your alignment, because anyone can say holy words. But when your life becomes the prayer, when your choices match your calling, when your boundaries reflect your worth, that's when the spiritual realm takes notice. You become a gatekeeper, a disruptor, a recalibrator of energies. You don't need to scream at demons when you're walking in truth. They flee not because you're loud, but because you carry clarity. And clarity is a weapon. Most demons operate through confusion, through noise, through distraction. But when you carry clarity, your presence becomes surgical. You cut through illusion simply by being real. And here's the final layer of this mystery. Your life becomes a mirror for others. That's why people either love you or reject you. You reflect what they haven't faced in themselves. Your peace convicts their chaos. Your healing confronts their avoidance. Your power forces them to question their comfort. Some will try to dim you. Others will try to drain you. But the ones who are ready will be transformed just by being near you. That's the cost of being chosen. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be light, a walking activation. A living reminder that holiness is not about perfection, it's about presence. And when you show up fully in that presence, even demons remember their place. So what now? Now that you know you're trusted, now that you've seen your armor, now that you've felt the truth in your bones, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to keep tiptoeing around your power? Or are you going to own it without apology? Because the world doesn't need another watered-down version of you. It needs the version that remembers, the version that walks with intention, the version that knows when I speak, realms shift. When I move, terrain changes. When I pray, heaven listens. When I rest, angels guard me. When I rise, darkness bows. That version, that's who you really are. That's who you've always been. And now it's time to live it. Not for applause, not for followers, but for alignment. Because the final sign that you are trusted by God and untouchable by demons is this: you stop needing proof and you start being the proof. Your life becomes the evidence. Your peace becomes the sermon. Your presence becomes the protection. And when you walk in that knowing, the whole spiritual realm adjusts around you. Not because you're superior, but because you're available. And that, my friend, is the most dangerous thing you can be to darkness. Fully available to the light. When the divine selects you, it rarely looks like a celebration. It's not announced with trumpets or adorned with gold. Instead, it often begins with breaking you open to reveal what's eternal within. You may notice this in your own life. The people you loved the most walked away. The dreams you held tightly collapsed. The identities you clung to began to unravel. But what if all of that wasn't punishment but purification? A sacred shedding of everything false so that only the truth remains, the truth of who you are, the soul beneath the story. Because when God trusts you, He doesn't decorate you, He disciplines you. Not out of cruelty, but out of love, because only the deeply refined can carry deep responsibility. You weren't just being tested, you were being transformed. The most untouchable people in this world are the ones who've learned how to sit with pain and not become bitter. They felt the darkness, but didn't become it. They cried until they couldn't speak and still chose to rise with compassion. That's spiritual excellence. Not pretending nothing hurts, but refusing to let hurt define your destiny. You've been through too much to fake anything now. You've seen too much to settle for surface. So why do you still question your strength? Why do you apologize for your light? Why do you explain your discernment to those who've never walked through the fire like you did? You're not here to dilute yourself so others feel safe. You're here to be the flame that reminds them they can survive their own darkness too. The funny thing about being untouchable by demons is that it doesn't mean you don't get attacked. It means the attacks don't stick. They don't sink into your spirit. They don't alter your identity. You may feel them, but you don't become them. That's where true power lives, in sovereignty. In knowing who you are so deeply that no amount of slander, misunderstanding, or spiritual warfare can rewrite your worth. This is why the divine trusts you. Because you've proven that your integrity is not for sale. You've shown up in truth when lies were more profitable. You've loved people who didn't love you back. And still, you didn't close your heart. That kind of strength is rare. And rare souls are always targeted, not because they're weak, but because they're dangerous to darkness. There's something else, something people don't talk about. The loneliness of being chosen, the ache of walking a path few understand. You may be surrounded by people and still feel unseen. Not because you're invisible, but because what you carry is too sacred to be recognized by shallow eyes. That's not your failure. That's your frequency. You weren't built to belong everywhere. You were built to belong to truth. And truth doesn't always have a crowd. Sometimes it has a cave, a quiet season, a stretch of wilderness where you meet the God inside you and realize you were never alone. You were being hidden, protected, polished in private so you could stand in power later. Don't rush that process. It's holy. You've likely noticed the pattern. People come to you for advice, for healing, for peace. Even when you're in pain yourself, that's not a coincidence. That's spiritual assignment. When God trusts you, He sends His people to you. Not because you have all the answers, but because your presence makes others remember their own. You carry a frequency that disrupts fear. That realigns energy. That speaks truth even in silence. That's why your peace confuses people who live in chaos. That's why your stillness feels like war to those addicted to drama. You don't need to prove anything. The anointing on your life does the speaking for you. And the more you accept that, the more magnetic your presence becomes without trying. But let's go deeper. You've likely felt this too, moments when you remember something ancient. A dream, a whisper, a knowing that you've done this before. That this life is not your beginning but your continuation. That you've stood in spiritual battles long before you were born into this body. That's not imagination. That's soul memory. And it's one of the greatest weapons you carry. When you remember who you are at that level, fear loses its grip. Temptation loses its shine. Demons lose their access. Because you're not just reacting from the moment, you're responding from eternity. You're walking with the wisdom of lifetimes. And that wisdom is encoded in every step you take when you walk in alignment. Let's be honest. The world doesn't understand this kind of clarity. It tries to mock it, mimic it, market it, but it can't manufacture it. Because clarity is not about being loud. It's about being aligned. It's about living in such deep truth that lies disintegrate in your presence. You walk into rooms and the energy rearranges itself. Not because you demand attention, but because your essence commands order. That's what happens when your life becomes the prayer. When your choices become your sermon. When your discernment becomes your protection. You don't even need to fight anymore. You just are. And that being is what demons cannot touch, because they cannot imitate what is pure. So now you're faced with a choice. Not a dramatic one, but a daily one. Will you keep shrinking to fit into spaces that were never built for your light? Or will you rise into the full radiance of who you've always been? Not out of arrogance, but out of devotion. Not to be seen, but to be used by the divine. Because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs more presence. And your presence, when fully embodied, becomes a spiritual disruption. A mirror, a lighthouse, a gate. You are here to shift atmospheres, to awaken the dormant, to remind the broken that they were never abandoned. And the moment you fully live from that truth, demons don't just leave. They remember who you are.